And now we are going to move to hear from our next guest, and I would want to start by thanking him very much for being in Tangier this evening with us. I also want to say that there is wonderful work done between this part of Central Europe and Morocco to better know each other and try to build a kind of bridges to make these two countries and the responsibles have common destiny by building a lot of things. It can start by conversations, but also start to business, industries. And we know that Central Europe is a great place if we consider Europe as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all together welcome His Excellency Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Hungary, Mr. Péter Szijjártó. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, dear colleagues, friends. Thank you so much for including me to the list of speakers of this wonderful opening ceremony. As we are gathering here this evening today, I think it's not an exaggeration to say that global security is in its worst shape since the conclusion of the Cold War. Especially, this statement is valid for Europe. Europe, a continent where a war has been going on, a continent in the direct neighborhood of which a serious security conflict has been taking place, and a continent which has been faced with a tremendous challenge of illegal flows of migration for the last 8 years as a consequence of a very irresponsible migratory policy of Brussels and the European Union. We see the outcome of all this. We see the creation of the parallel societies in the western part of Europe. We see as loud minorities are putting pressure on communities living there for centuries. We see the establishment of no-go zones, and we see the threat of terror increasing in the continent of Europe. And ladies and gentlemen, as a number of wars, armed conflicts, and terrorist attacks are increasing, the responsibility of the international community is increasing as well. Because if these security risks, if these conflicts are getting more and more serious in the future, they will add up on each other, and the risk of a launching of a third world war is going to be more and more serious. Therefore, it is really clear what is the duty and homework of the international community. And this is to mitigate, to reduce these security risks, and to find a peaceful solution to the most possible wars and armed conflicts going on in the world. What do we need to be able to fulfill this homework? Well, a fundamental change of international politics. Because how we can characterize the international political discourse now? It is full of criticizing each other, lecturing each other, judging each other, implementing sanctions of each other. We in Hungary, a mid-sized landlocked country in Central Europe, we don't like that. We want international political discourse to come back to the basis of mutual respect. Finally, we should leave the colonialistic approach behind. And we should not allow any country in this world to interfere into the domestic issues of another country anymore. Because I'm pretty sure no one knows better what is good to Morocco than the Moroccans. No one knows what is good for the Dominican people than the Dominican themselves. And no one knows better what is good for Hungarians than we Hungarians ourselves, you can believe that. And if you are not able to push international political discourse to come back to the basis of mutual respect, then we will face the risk of the world being divided into blocks again. And we Hungarians have an experience in that. When the world was divided into blocks, we Central Europeans have lost a lot on that. We lost 4 decades of our lives, and we don't want to be losers anymore. So therefore, instead of coming back to an age when the world was divided into blocks, we want the upcoming period of global politics to be characterized by global cooperation based on respect and global cooperation based on connectivity. And we do have to remind all of ourselves, what is the function of diplomacy? Function of diplomacy is to talk to each other. Not only to those whom you like, not only to those whom you agree with 100%. You have to talk to each other, to all of us. And in case channels of communication are being stuck, then we give up the hope for peace, and we Hungarians, living in a direct neighborhood of a war, we do not want to give up the hope for peace. We in Hungary are located in Central Europe, and we are unfortunately, as many times in history, in the crossroads of security challenges. From the east, we are faced with the challenge of the war in Ukraine for more than 1.5 years. And from the south, we are confronted with the pressure coming on the most frequented migratory route towards Europe. And we all know, when it comes to the challenge of migration, there will be no solution unless Africa and Europe can build a strong and respectful cooperation. Last year, we had to stop 275,000 illegal migrants at our southern border. This year, we are already at 180,000. Figures are increasing. The smugglers and the migrants are shooting at our border guards. And we all know that terrorism and migration constitute an evil circle. Terrorism is the root cause for migration, and terrorism is a consequence of migration as well, as the migratory waves are giving the chance for a terrorist to hide and go along the world, spread extremist ideologies, and commit terrorist attacks. And we all know that our global fight against illegal migration will only be successful if we can overcome the root causes. Therefore, we have to fight against terrorism. We have to fight against extremist ideologies, and we have to do our best in order to bring as many investments and as many developments into Africa as it is just possible. In order to be able to complete all these, we need a strong and respect-based Europe-Africa cooperation. We Hungarians are not the biggest and not the strongest and not the richest ones in Europe, but we do our best. We deploy 200 troops to Chad in order to contribute to the security and stability of the Sahel region. We have offered altogether $140 million for tied aid credit programs for African countries to improve infrastructure and water management systems. We provide 1,425 scholarships for African students in Hungary from 24 African countries. And in the framework of the Hungary Helps program, we support the Christian communities in 18 countries of Africa to be able to stay where their communities had been living for centuries or even longer period of time. We Hungarians, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, are ready to contribute to the strong cooperation between Africa and Europe, because we all know that it is a core interest of Europe for Africa to be developing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you so much.